Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's a great honor for me to join my friend Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and all of you today. Thank you for coming from over 160 countries to our historic National Mall in Washington, D.C. to celebrate world culture and our capacity for evolutionary, personal, and group transformation. I want to share with you some of my own personal story about transformation. I was a drug addict when I was a teenager, and I was addicted to heroin for over 14 years. And during that period, I was being run by an engine of self-will. I describe myself during that period as just a bundle of appetites that were constantly asking me to feed them. And all of those things were the service to self-will. And when I got sober, I had to make a choice about whether this was an addiction that was going to kill me. It was very clear. And that I had to make a dramatic choice to change my life from a life that was being governed by self-will to a life that was being governed by a power greater than myself. And you can call it God or by whatever name that you want. And I made that decision to turn my life over that. I had to, in order to do that, I had to break my life. I had to start very methodically in breaking my life, my everyday, down to a series of moral choices. God gives us time, but he breaks time into manageable units called days. And every day we get to start again in trying to put God's will in charge of self-will. And I had to break every day into a series of little choices, probably 40 choices a day. And each one now for me had a moral dimension. So do I get up on time when the alarm goes off, or do I stay in bed with my indolent thoughts? Do I make the bed? It's probably the most important choice that I make of the day. Do I hang up the towels after I shower? Do I put the water in the ice tray rather than putting the ice tray back in the refrigerator empty? When I go into the closet and pull out a pair of blue jeans and all those little wire hangers drop to the floor, do I pick them up and put them back where they're supposed to be? Or do I say, I'm too important for that, that's somebody else's job? Do I put the shopping cart back where the shopping cart is supposed to go in the parking lot at the grocery store? Or do I leave that for somebody else? And what I find is that when I make a lot of those choices correctly, that I can maintain this posture of surrender and that I feel God's presence in my life. You cannot live off the laurels of a spiritual awakening. You have to renew it every day. And my self-will is constantly looking for an opening to get back control of my life. And my inclination is that when my life starts going well again, which it did right as soon as I got sober, and all of the cash and prizes start flowing into my life, my inclination is to say, thanks God, I got it from here, and then take the wheel of the car and drive it off the cliff again. But the trick is, how do we stay in that posture of surrender, even when good things are happening, even when we're not desperate, we're not forced onto our knees to beg God for help in our lives? Addiction is about abuse of power. We ultimately have to turn our power over to our higher power. When I was active, I was like a big truck. I was very ambitious, even though I was an addict. I was like a big truck stuck in a ditch with the real wheels spinning, with smoke coming out of the headers and the pipes and making a lot of noise and flames, but I was going nowhere. It was all activity and no progress. And part of turning your life over is learning to be quiet with yourself. And there's a line from Isaiah that was very influential for me when I first got sober. Be still and know that I am God. And that means you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to reach outside of yourself to fix something that is wrong inside of yourself. And when I'm in that place of peace and calm, I become much more efficient as a human being. And I become a much more effective human being. And what I know now is that everything I've ever done in my life that comes from self-will has turned into meaningless, into wormwood and bile. And that everything that I've done that is enduring, that is important, that is meaningful in my life has come from a spiritual place. And the trick is, how do you stay in that spiritual place even when your life is going well? And that's the discipline that we need to exercise over ourselves. And God exercises it over us. When we make God exercise it over us, it's called humiliation. When we exercise it over ourselves, it's called humility. And all of us have to now approach life with humility. And that means extending compassion and kindness to people around us, and particularly those people who don't agree with us. Everybody who talks to us, every encounter that we have, is God talking to us, teaching us a lesson. Even somebody who throws you a finger or an obscene gesture when you're driving because you took a wrong turn or something, that I have to say to myself when that happens to me, what is God trying to teach me from this? What am I supposed to learn from this circumstance? We have to address all of each other that way. We have to all understand that we're God's children, and that each one of us is a vector through which God is communicating to all others. And that all the relationships you have in your life, the people who love you, but even the people who don't like you and the people you don't like, that they're all messengers from God. And when we understand this, we see that the giant divisions that are now polarizing in our country and humanity, that they're ultimately the product of that self-will. And our job as individuals is to overcome self-will, to turn our lives over to that higher power, to do the next right thing, and to show kindness and compassion and respect to people with whom we disagree, and to try to love them, which is effort. Love ultimately is effort, and to make that effort towards other human beings. And in that way, we can begin to bridge the divide that separates humanity. And when we do that, the amount that we can accomplish will be almost indescribable. Abraham Lincoln, whose statue we can see on the National Mall, he was a wood splitter. He worked in the woods and he made rails, and he was known as the rail cutter. He was a very big man. He was 6'5" or 6'6", and he was tremendously strong. He could beat anybody in his state in wrestling and in feats of physical strength. But he was very famous for being able to cut down trees fast. He was asked one time that if he had to cut down a very, very big oak tree, what his strategy would be, and he had 5 hours to do it. He said, I'd spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. That is a metaphor for life. When we work on perfecting our spiritual condition, we become much more effective human beings and much more effective leaders in our community. So I urge all of you to try to do something every day for somebody that you don't like, and then don't tell anybody about it. God bless you, and thank you. If you like this video and you want to learn more about me and the movement that we're building, please go to Kennedy24.com.